Even the filmmakers have described this as more of a series of jokes than an actual movie, which makes it a good movie. Welcome, y'all. Taylor James Johnson here, and I'm absolutely loving the 80s, because the 80s was a hilarious decade that let filmmakers and comedians just, go absolutely bonkers. And one of, if not the silliest, wackiest comedy I've ever seen is Top Secret, starring a very, very young Val Kilmer who is absolutely perfect in this. He sings, he dances, he tells jokes. It's a spoof of Elvis movies, it's a spoof of World War II movies, it's a musical. It's just perfect, and it's from the guys who brought us Airplane and Naked Gun, so yeah, you know what you're getting into here. It's no secret. Top Secret. Cows aren't supposed to wear boots. Comedy.
When people think of the movie-making team of Zucker, Abrams Zucker, aka Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker, or as they're once called Zaz, people think of either Airplane or The Naked Gun. After that, people probably think of Hot Shots, which is really just Abrahams, or some of Jerry Zucker's serious solo movies like Ghost and First Night. Maybe, if you're really hip, you'll think of the Kentucky Fried Movie. But smack dab in the middle of Airplane and The Naked Gun, there was Top Secret, which is an underrated cult classic of their canon that counts folks like Weird Al Yankovic among its diehard fans and introduced the world to the great Val Kilmer. But in 1984, it wasn't much of a hit, so let's shine a light on another best movie you probably never saw, shall we? After the staggering success of Airplane, Zucker, Abrahams, and Zucker were practically offered the Paramount lot if they would come back for a sequel, but the guys turned it down, opting to explore Leslie Nielsen's heretofore unexplored comedy chops with the cult classic TV show Police Squad, which introduced the world to the great Frank Drebin but only lasted 6 episodes. Meanwhile, Airplane 2, the sequel, came out and tanked hard, despite some pretty top-notch work by William Shatner.
We've all got our switches, lights, and knobs to deal with, Stryker. I mean, down here, there are literally hundreds and thousands of blinking, beeping, and flashing lights. Blinking and beeping and flashing. They're flashing and they're beeping. I can't stand it anymore. They're blinking and beeping and flashing. Why doesn't somebody pull the plug?
And arguably, it was bad enough that it doomed Top Secret right from the start, as by the time Zaz finally got around to it, audiences weren't sophisticated enough to realize that the line from the makers of Airplane didn't mean that the guys had anything whatsoever to do with the crappy sequel. But I digress. The Zaz fellas seemingly have no great love for Top Secret, with Jerry Zucker telling Screen Crush in a retrospective that it was more of a joke book than a movie. So basically what the guys did was take some of their favorite jokes, hang them on the premise of what if Elvis Presley did a World War II movie. As Jim Abrahams said in the Screen Crush article, it wasn't concise. We couldn't find a single genre to make fun of, like the disaster movie in Airplane. It was really a combination of Elvis movies and World War II movies, and that's harder to wrap your mind around than a single genre. For their leads, the guys once again decided to go with a mix of unknowns and character actors, which had worked so well in Airplane. For the lead, Nick Rivers, they picked young Val Kilmer, who was then best known as Cher's boyfriend, with Lucy Gutteridge as his love interest. The character actors in this case were Omar Sharif from Dr. Zhivago and Lawrence of Arabia, who seems to be having a whale of a time, Jeremy Kemp from the Blue Max, and Peter Cushing, who apparently thought the guys were just brilliant, but sadly was a little long in the tooth to really capitalize on his comedy chops. Still, if this had been a hit, Omar Sharif might have become another Leslie Nielsen. So, when Top Secret came out, it was received more or less indifferently, and the way it was marketed certainly didn't help, with the poster being of a cow wearing boots, which is an out-of-context joke from later in the movie. Heck, as a kid, I remember wanting to rent Top Secret, but my parents thought it looked too dumb. So maybe a better campaign might have helped. The movie only grossed about $20 million, but one of the folks to see it in theaters was none other than Weird Al Yankovic, who later said, "If I was forced at gunpoint to name the funniest movie I've ever seen, or even just ask politely, that would work too, I'd have to say Top Secret. And before you ask, yes, I've seen both Sophie's Choice and The Hurt Locker. I'd still have to go with Top Secret. It's just one of those movies that, when it comes on TV, I'll tell myself I'll just watch a minute or two, then I invariably end up watching the whole thing. I've seen the movie a dozen times. Probably more times than any other movie, with the possible exception of UHF, which I had to watch multiple times for obvious reasons." If you want to see more thoughts of Weird Al Yankovic's on Top Secret, check out the Vulture interview and pretty much every interview that he's ever given about movies. I mean, he really does love this film. Now, the movie did pick up something of a cult status in later years, and it's one that I've always really liked. You just have to kind of go with the vibe that you're watching an insane Elvis movie that's kind of set in World War II, but also kind of set in the 80s, which I suppose also challenged folks. Val Kilmer is terrific as the sweet-natured but pretty thick Nick Rivers, and it's worth noting that he does all of his own singing and actually put out an album in '84 in character as Nick Rivers.
And you will always be a love that's true. You set my heart on fire, it's burning with desire.
Right from the start, you have to just kind of go with the vibe, and you have to surrender to it. If you're not smiling by the time Skeet Surfin' starts up in the soundtrack, well, you know what, this just isn't for you. But if you like that, and also songs like Straighten the Rug,
You gotta straighten the rug, yeah, straighten the rug, you gotta give it a push.
Top Secret is a blast, and Kilmer is legitimately hilarious because he can both play dumb, but also be believable as a romantic lead. I'd argue that if Nick Rivers was less good looking, this movie wouldn't have worked, and lines like, "Is your daughter 18?" well...
Ist ihr Takten Achsen, bitte?
What does that mean?
Is your daughter 18?
wouldn't have gone down as well as they did in the film. Now, this movie is chock full of great jokes, and there's a gonzo scene with Cushing in a bookstore that's played with the dialogue running backwards that's just great. Plus, there's an awesome underwater fight, which was done for real. And also look for Jim Carter, that's right, Mr. Carlson from Downton Abbey, as one of the members of the resistance that Nick Rivers hooks up with. Is it a classic like Airplane or The Naked Gun? No, but it's also a real fun, laugh-a-minute comedy, and heck, couldn't we all use a good laugh right now? Until next time, for JoeBlow.com, I'm Chris Bumbre.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joe Blow was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.